Hello, Firestarters. Welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited to share my friend with you, Amber Johnson. We just had a chance to meet, and I'll just let you know we have some lifing right now. We were just talking about that. Amber's had some life-changing events happen in her life recently, and I want to let you know that right out of the gate, because as she shares today, what I want you to pick up on is how when the call of God is on you to move and to share, that no matter what happens in life, we push forward and we answer God's call. And that's exactly who she is and what she's doing here today. So Amber Johnson, aka B Channel, which stands for Blessing, Edifying, and Encouraging Others to Live Their Best Lives. That resonates with my heart so much, Amber. She is a caregiver, blogger, and podcaster. Some of her favorite topics to talk about are faith, caregiving, relationships, and content creation. And her mission with her platform is to spread love, light, and hope of God with every post. I absolutely love that. You are my people, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for being here, Amber.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's dive into it. So my listeners know one of my favorite questions to start with is, there are many times God calls us to step out of the boat and to follow in faithful obedience, just like Peter did, maybe directly into waves. Can you think of one of those many times that you'd like to share with us where you heard that call and you stepped out of the boat?
I would say that one of the biggest opportunities that I've had to do that is by taking care of my father. And me and my mother, we take care of him. We took care of him together for the last 12 years. But the last 7 years were really the most intense because we had to do so many things for him. He was a stroke survivor. And just for the audience's sake, I would just like to let y'all know that he passed last week. And it was a lot. But we had so much peace because we knew that we did everything that we could possibly do for him. And it's so weird. I'm still processing right now, but it's like the care doesn't stop just because the person passes. There's still so much more that had to be done after the fact. So it's really been a journey. And he had strokes, and as a result of those strokes and also getting hit by a car at one point, he had so many downturns, so many things happen, and it was just this spiral with just so many things happening. And he was such a trooper. And I remember when it first happened, when he first started having all those strokes and everything. I was like, okay, some things are going to have to change. Things are not going to be the same. Me and my mom, we're going to have to take on more responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then when in 2017, when he had his accident and got hit by a car, that changed everything completely. And it was just one of those things where it's like, you can't put people that you love in a nursing home because it's just not the place for them, because it's not really the best care, because it's nothing like being at home. And we strongly feel that, and a lot of people have said this too, that your loved one lasts longer when they're at home with you. And it's just something about being at home and knowing that people love you and hearing their voices and being able to interact with each other whenever, instead of having to adhere to visiting hours and things like that. So we really think that that was key to him surviving as long as he did. And then just us saying yes to doing what we had to do. And then when the pandemic came along in 2020, we had to say yes even harder, because we had to protect him, because he was so vulnerable. His immune system was so vulnerable. So I was like, I'm staying home. I'm not going out anymore. I'm just going to do this full time. And we just really just put our heads down and did what we had to do until the very end.
Until the very end, you were running the race that you were called to run. And I can imagine there's
Yes.
challenges and sacrifices to that journey, but also great blessing
Yes.
and reward. So tell me a little bit about, you make the decision. I'm sure there was a moment where you realized, you even said it, things are going to be different, but then realizing you are called, you and your mother are both called to step in at this point. whenever you realize that, tell me about the journey of processing the changes, the sacrifices and challenges that you had to face answering that call.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize that your social life kind of goes in the trash can. You don't get to really see your friends or your family. You don't get to date. That's like off the table completely because people don't really understand that you have these time constraints and that you're responsible for your loved one. And people almost look at you like, okay, what are you doing? Like, you're young, you're supposed to be traveling, you're supposed to be doing all these things, right? But from my perspective, I felt like it was an obligation. And I felt like that because he took care of me and he stayed up with me and changed my diapers. So the least I could do is help my mom take care of him and return the favor because he was a great father to me. So it's like, everybody's story is not the same. Some people haven't had the greatest relationship with their parents at all. So, everybody's not going to be doing that, but that was what we chose to do because we loved him. And so that's what we did.
I love that. It's greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your muchness is what I say. Because it's, your heart, your mind, all of it, all your muchness. And then love your neighbor as yourself. But there, of course, implied in that is that sacrificial love of Christ, of how he loved the church. And that's what we do for each other, especially family, of course, right? But there are challenges along the way. God called you to this. He called you into this role. Answering that call, how is it? Tell me about the sanctification process and how the Lord has revealed himself through this.
I think that one of the major things that really showed me that I was supposed to be doing this is just for the audience's sake, I have to share this little backstory with y'all. I went to nursing school circa 2007 to 2011. That didn't work out, y'all. But it did work out because I was able to have that background information, that foreknowledge to be able to help my mom take care of him better. And when we go to the hospital, I can be able to read the machine and say, "Oh, this is what that means." So I was able to assist her in that way, and there was little things that I gleaned and held onto for all these years that helped me to be a better caregiver for my daddy. And this whole experience really taught me like I have to be selfless. It's not about what I want and what I need all the time. We have to put him first. And that was grueling. And we had to find a flow where we can find moments for ourselves. But that's what we had to do.
Cannot believe that is so like God to call you to something and then it doesn't work out and you're probably like, what is, you call me into nursing, why is this not working out? I know I'm meant to be a caregiver. I know that's how you designed me. Why would you pull this away from me? And then here we go.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah. I say he has a sense of humor because the instructor, she felt like I wasn't like really doing that well with the feeding tube because I didn't know how to take care of somebody with the feeding tube. But then my daddy had a feeding tube, so I had to end up doing that for him every day, helping him with the feeding tube and trach care and IV care. And my mom was doing wound care. So we was really in the trenches and people like nurses even told us, it's like, you guys are nurses. So God
Yes.
is funny,
Yeah, that you are so right. God does have a sense of humor. And you absolutely did take care of your father at that level for so long. 100% you're a nurse. You are a nurse, Amber.
It's funny because people say that, like, they be like, "Oh, you should go back." But I'm like, there is a level of trauma that occurs from this experience that, okay, I could do that for my daddy because I love him. But for other people, it's like, but it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe there's another way. There's some middle ground. I feel like I would love to be like a liaison or something and maybe be that comfort care person and talk to people at the hospital about what is it like to do life with a stroke survivor? What is it like for people to have to decide if they're going to put their loved one on hospice or not? What is it like at end of life? What are all of those things like to help somebody walk through those things? I feel like that would be something great, or even just being a therapist.
That is 100% needed. And I can see that behind my eyes. I can see that person there, because when that happens and you don't understand what life is going to be like now, it's going to be different, but what is it going to take? And can I meet those those needs, what an excellent resource to have somebody there and say, this is what it's going to be like, and this is what it requires, and I can guide you and I can counsel you through it to help you make wise decisions, knowing that your heart, Amber, is making decisions to where that loved one can be with you as much as possible. So here's the best options for that. That's amazing.
Yes. Yes, because you know what? People don't tell you this, but it could be up to $10,000 a day to put your loved one in a nursing home. And that is if they're in a room by themselves, but you can get a room with someone else and still pay $8,000, you know, per month. So who's going to be able to afford that and sustain that over a sustained period of time? You
No.
know?
And to share a room, I don't love that
Right.
idea. No. So, okay, so
Right.
through this experience, I know God has molded one, your experience, your skills, honed your passion, and given you a vision for the future. So tell me, how is God calling you forward from this point on?
Right now, my mission is just to love on my mom and cherish her as much as I possibly can and to heal, you know? And it's funny because I feel like this whole time has been a journey of ambiguous grief because I grieved what I thought my daddy's life would look like. And then there was the anticipatory grief. But at one point, it felt like, is there any grief left? It really felt like, is there any grief left? Because for so long, the last 7 years, it's like, oh, I don't know, we were just kind of like just going through so many different changes. So now it's just kind of like, okay, this is a phase where I'm in transition, and it's okay not to know. It's okay to take a beat. It's okay to breathe, you know?
Well, and I hear you say the last 7 years were most especially challenging. And I think about that number seven, that number of completion. And
Completion.
yes, and a need for rest, a need for rest and restoration and figuring out. It's such a life change, I'm sure, to not have him there. I mean, do you find yourself going, okay, it's time to get up, I need to, and you're like,
Oh my
no,
goodness.
I
I was
don't.
telling my mom, I said, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I wouldn't blame her if that happened one day. And she was like, come on, Amber, we have to go take care of daddy. We got to go change him. Because for so long, that was our refrain. Come on, we got to go do this. We got to go do that. So we have to figure out our new normal. What does that look like? What are we going to do now? How many different experiences can we have together now? The family outings and things like that. And then it feels kind of wrong because you're like, I don't want to be this joyful. You feel like it's like offensive to your loved one because you're like, oh, I can't be joyful, like, or I should be crying, I should be blubbering right now, right? But it's so important that I realize and remember what they say about grief is that it comes in waves and there's no wrong way to do it. So that's what we all have to remember.
That is so good. You have such a healthy outlook on what is required in this season and such a peace about it that I would have to say could only come through the Holy Spirit.
Yes, that's what I said. This piece does not make any sense. And I know it's God given because you would think, oh my goodness, this is gonna be like this. You think all these things are gonna happen when somebody dies, right? But it did not happen like that at all. And even the process, it's not like when on TV where someone says, I got something to say to you, and they take a breath and that's it. No, it took literally about 5 days. We were here with him the entire time. So that's something that people don't understand too about their journey. Like, oh, what does this look like? What is hospice? What is that like? They consider that comfort care. So that means that a lot of the things that you would think that your loved one would need, they don't necessarily need anymore. But it's a hard thing. It's a hard road to walk and say, oh, we're not going to give him any more medicine, no more food, water, fluids, any of that. You just kind of sit there with the person and give them comfort meds, right? And it's like, this is so foreign. It feels like inhumane, right? But that's pretty much what they're saying. Like, oh, this person is their time is coming to an end. So you have to say, okay, how can we best support that? How can we make him comfortable? We just loved on him. We just loved on him, loved on him. Keep telling him, thank you. Thank you for being the father that you were. Thank you for being the husband that you were. Thank you for being a part of our stories and letting us be a part of yours. And just thank you for the memories and just sharing memories with them and putting on the prayers and the scriptures from Abide and coming people coming to say, just be there with us and praying for him and all of that. So it was a beautiful thing, but it was not something I'll be like 0 stars, y'all. 0 stars. I don't recommend because it was a lot of angst. You know what I mean? It's beautiful that you get to do it, but there's a lot of angst because you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And you're sitting there like paranoid. Should I go to sleep? And the advice that we got, they said, listen, y'all, your loved one is trying to protect you. So they might not go with you sitting there. So you might go out the room and then that's it. So it's like, don't worry yourself and just say what you feel like you need to say and just, that's all we can do. But it was really hard.
I can't even imagine. I love you said 0 stars. Thank you for that honesty. Like can't paint this
Yes.
picture to be pretty. It's not, it's difficult. I think about that moment and all of the unknowns and how difficult that has to be because of the unknowns. And you
Right.
obviously you're like, I mean, you said your dad is, he's strong, he had grit. You obviously do too. You know how to persevere, push through, endure. Um, Whenever he did pass,
Mm-hmm.
did tell me about that moment. What was it like for you? Did you release? Did it take time? Have you released yet? Or are you still in kind of resilient
Uh,
mode?
I feel like it's kind of like this thing. You know how people talk about shock, right? I don't think shock is just this one moment. Maybe it might be a prolonged thing. For all I know, I'm still in process. So I'm like, it's been what, like 9 days here. So I'm just kind of like, okay, it feels surreal, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what is this, so just trying to figure it out, even though it's not really something that's possible to fully comprehend on this side of heaven, right? So it's a journey. And it was weird because the nurse was coming every day. We had a beautiful hospice nurse. Oh my goodness, she hugged us and everything, and she was like, y'all did them justice, and you did everything you could. And she was just so loving, and that was really what made it better. We had somebody coming every day to help us, like just be there and be like, okay, this is what's happening. And we're like, okay, or we understand. And she was just great. So that's a ministry by itself. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, girl, are you in therapy? Because she was like, one nurse was like, yes, I am in therapy. Because I'm like, this is heavy to walk with people through.
Yeah.
And I thank God for therapy too. So that's what we have to understand too. Therapy and theology, not just, oh, pray. And, we need God, but He sent people to help us. These people were made for this purpose at this particular season in our lives. So that is just, I really want to make sure people know that. Therapy, it's okay. It's not offensive to God.
Yes, I'm so glad that you said that. Therapy and theology. I remember I went through a medical challenge and I told my doctor about it. And he was like, we need to get you some medicine. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm going to pray my way through this. It didn't work. I needed the medicine. And I believe everybody needs a counselor and a coach. A counselor helps you process, especially the past, so that you can behave well in the present, a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
but also to cope and to process things that you're experiencing now. And then a coach invites you into your future and the next right step into that. I have to say, you sound a bit like a coach and a counselor combo.
Wow. That is such a high compliment. I appreciate that.
You do. You have a gifting for both, I believe. So tell me about the B channel. I want to know more about this because it resonates with me.
It was so funny, right? Because I was on this weight loss journey a while back, and so people were like, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, you should post about this on YouTube and stuff." So I started like doing it on my channel, but then it was kind of like I kind of fell off of it, and then eventually in 2020 I got serious again. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna everything right." This, as the years progress, get on all these different things just to blog and podcast. So that's pretty much my mission on those platforms is just like share my musings about God, talk about what the content journey is like at times. I might review a book I've read in my quiet time. I have guests on my show and we talk about different things. They share their testimony and things like that. So it's really been fun. Like the last couple of years, I've really been like growing and really enjoying that, expressing myself in that way. And this right here is one of the most therapeutic things that I've ever done. Is just being a guest on a podcast and sharing what it's really like, you know?
Yeah, I remember. So, listeners, at the beginning of this, when she shared that her father had passed so recently, it's like, gosh, are you sure you want to do this? And she said, yes, because it's like therapy. And I have to say, Amber, I agree with you. The Lord called me to do this podcast almost 3 years ago. I did not obey. I was like, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. Who ran off from Nineveh? Or
Jonah.
Jonah. I like ran off. I was like, I'm not doing it. Who am I? I'm not called to this. And luckily, he uses the people in our lives. And I had a very good friend. I was very confused about what to do next. And I was like, I don't know. I'm
Aww.
stuck. And she said, Hillary, usually when God gives us step one, he's not going to give us step two until you're obedient with step one. And he called you to start this podcast
Mm.
like 2 years ago. So why don't you go ahead and be about that? And it's amazing since I've done that, how I've gained clarity. He's given me clarity. But you're 100% right. I love meeting people, hearing their stories. Your story, who you are, Amber, ignites me. When I sit here and just listen to you speak and I'm in your presence,
Aww.
I'm so ignited. Um, and it's affirmation, it's confirmation about who our God is, that he is in the details. You begin after, and I'm sure you've had many guests on your podcast, after so many stories, you begin to see these threads that he pulls in people's lives, like his humor, like him calling you to something and then it not working out and you wondering, well, what's that about? And then you see the next step. And I've learned so much about who our God is and how good he is. And I have to say this, maybe you tell me if you agree or disagree with this. What he calls us to is always for his glory, right? That's our purpose to live here, is his kingdom, his glory, to worship him. But in his sweetness, what he calls us to is also for the joy it creates in our life and our sanctification and our growth, and then the goodness we get to see come out of it for others. Have you experienced that as well?
I feel like just for the caregiving in general, like it made me be like a better lover of people
Mm.
because it's like, okay, like the empathy just grew. I feel like the compassion just grew. And I feel like I've always been a person that like just is really empathetic and everything like that. But it just takes it to a whole another level when you go through something like that. You're like, oh, like I see you and you want to make other people feel seen, known, heard, and loved, you know?
Yes. I love what you just shared right there. That gave me, I just had a thought. What he calls us to is going to lead us to love him more, but love people more. That's so true. I think about things
Yes.
I've done in the past where I didn't necessarily experience a greater love for people. But what he's called me to now, it has deepened my love and empathy for others in a way that I didn't see coming. You're very
Yeah.
wise.
Thank you.
That is very good, very good. So tell our listeners where they can find you, how they can connect with you, because I know they're probably going to want to direct message you and ask you a ton of questions. I'm going to go ahead and say you need to start figuring out your business plan, because you have a skill set and you have a passion, and people need counseling and coaching and those next steps of life and caregiving. So how can they connect with you?
They can find me at B Channel 27 on Instagram. That's probably the best place. And every single platform I have my link tree in my bio. So
Okay.
that's also an option as well for all the other platforms like TikTok and Pinterest, YouTube, Spotify. Everything.
All of them. So the Instagram handle, how do you spell that out? Is it B-E-E? Spell it out for us.
BEECHANNES.
7. Okay. And I'll put all of this in the show notes as well, because I want people to be able to reach out to you and ask you questions. Hopefully they won't bombard you, but I want them to have access to you because you have
Yes,
a
I
wealth of
welcome
knowledge.
it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so grateful. I know so for listeners, we had the hardest time connecting. There was so much life was lifing in my life, and we disconnected a few times, but the Lord has brought us together, and I'm so grateful. We prayed before this, just knowing that God is going to be glorified through this, and goodness will be brought to others. And I'm so excited for when this episode drops. It's going to be good. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Amber.
You're welcome.
All right, fire starters, we will see you on the next episode. In the meantime, go find Amber on Instagram, click on her link tree, connect with her. You are incredible, and definitely you've been given a gift by the Lord, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it.
Thank you.